When it comes to having guests on this show many, many times, three guys have appeared the most. Tom Basso, Jerry Parker, Larry Height. Three trend-following legends. It doesn't look like it will happen again because, as we all know, life happens. I don't think Larry will be able to appear on my show again. That sucks, right? That sucks. One of the funniest, brightest guys I've ever met. But since time is an interesting thing, let's go back in time today. Let's do a little bit of a Larry repeat, a Larry reminder, a reminder at how interesting of a guy Larry Height is. I hope you enjoy.
Let me make an observation on that since you lead with getting older. I just watched Mr. Munger and Mr. Buffett on YouTube, and I watched a good portion of their annual shareholders meeting from the last few days. And compared to them, you're a teenager.
That's true. But it's so much richer than me. Well, you take what you get. What does the world think of America now?
What does the world think of America?
Yeah, you're sitting in Asia, right? These people have had experience with America, really shitty experience, but okay. When I was there years ago, they said, well, we are Buddhists, so we don't hate, but we don't forget. So now the world is flipping around, and I just wondered if they still have that.
I had a conversation with a guy that works for a fund that raises assets across Asia to let people in all Asian countries essentially buy their green card to America. And it's a minimum $800,000 investment. So I don't think there's any lack of demand for that. And I think even the average Vietnamese, probably other Asian countries, they still want their kids to go there for school and all that kind of stuff. And they still think that America is the ideal that they might have heard about in their youth. And I think, in my opinion, many people in Asia have not experienced on the ground, because of COVID, in many cases, they've not experienced on the ground since 2019. And America is a completely different place after COVID. They still have a certain optimism, but the direction America is going on all kinds of fronts, especially culturally, I think eventually people are going to understand what that is, and they're not going to like it.
I live here and I don't like it.
It's not nice. I'll share something with you too, since it's an interesting way for you to start our conversation. Look, sometimes you and I joke around about pretty girls in this podcast, but I must say one thing that I really love where I'm at right now, and whether it's a relationship or a friend, the sensibilities of the women in Vietnam, for example, they remind me of the sensibilities of our mothers or our grandmothers. So they might be a younger, attractive lady or an older, attractive lady or whatever, but they still, even in their 20s and 30s, there's a sensibility to where it's, oh, wow, there's a certain caring there. There's a certain feminine feeling there. They're hard workers and all that stuff, but it's not this strident chasm that's developing between men and women in America. Probably not news to you, right?
Plus, they would become, and I am certainly one person who fits the bill, very impatient. Amazon is a great example. Today, no one has to not have anything they want. Pretty close. And not only do they get it, but they get it fast. That is probably true in Vietnam too. But I can stay in my apartment and order anything I want, and it'll be there in a day.
Is that good or bad? I no longer think it's good.
I think what we have in that mode is when you go in Miami, I do a lot of physical fit things. I try to anyway. And everybody when you talk to the doctors and people want to come in and get the thing that's going to do it. Boom. And everybody's impatient. We have an impatient country. We have an impatient world, for all I know. So nobody has to wait for anything. Debt does not mean anything. Now, look, I'm not an economist. I'm a trader. They want to make this coin, $1 trillion coin. I could not believe it. So what are they going to do? They're going to print more money.
Well, they can't. They're kind of locked in right now. I mean, with the inflation, it's going to be interesting to see what they do if they go old school Volcker and they really kill inflation. But look, back to trend following 101. You and I can't predict tomorrow. We're smart people. We can make observations. We can look around, but we sure as hell don't know what's going to happen next. We have to prepare for whatever happens, right?
I came into one of your you went in a rant, and a rant about how the world's changing.
I was ranting?
Oh, yeah. You started out with a fake country, and so many people were this way, so many people were that way, and it changed. I thought it was an extremely interesting way to, and look, here's your deal. You can deal with this like Tom Basso. Have a great time. Or, and you mentioned my name, Larry Height, he deals with it, he puts in a stop, and that's it. And I actually believe that having a stop is an enormously sensible thing to do. And I can't imagine people without a stop in futures. I can understand it in the stock market.
Larry, they can still go to zero. Look at all these banks out there in San Francisco going under right now. I get your point on futures, but right now we're in the age of bank stocks going to zero.
I don't know about zero, but yes. I was thinking the other day that anybody who doesn't have a way of getting out, I believe, I was agreeing with is sort of somebody committing suicide.
It's back to Ed Secoda's famous line about everybody gets what they want. So if somebody doesn't have a stop and they're sitting there and they're taking the pain, it's kind of like some sadomasochistic thing. They enjoy it. They enjoy the losing. They enjoy going down with the ship.
You know the guy from Texas?
Salem Abraham.
Yeah. Why did he stop trading?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, he had a long career. I didn't know that he stopped.
Somebody told me that.
I don't have any news there, but I will say this. Like I said, I think if I'm going by memory, I believe his first fund started in 88. Very young man. He might have had a 25 to 30 year track record. I'm not really sure what the status is at this moment.
Oh, yeah. He had that. And see, my view is there's nothing to do with that. It's a machine. You turn it on. It makes you money.
One of the things that we did see in the trend following managed money space over the, let's say, decade between 2010 until 2020, we did see some large names in trend following see their assets under management go down. Not necessarily from drastically reduced performance, but because everyone looks over there and says, hey, let me go stocks, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, of course, it's 2020 until today. Trend following has been a wonderful investment. I think some people saw their assets shrink during that period. That could be one issue. We're speculating about any one individual we're speculating or one company. I don't know.
I look at it, it's a machine. It's a really simple business. First thing, you got to be like Dixon Watts, as you point out. You got to train at where you can sleep. But if you do that, and that's built into the system, you don't need to do much to just say, look, take an average, any bunch of averages, I don't care. They'll tell you the trend. You have a choice to figure out, to say how much you're willing to lose, and you can keep score. It's like baseball. You actually know if somebody's good or bad, or having a bad run. But I have not seen people But if you keep your bets, doesn't matter, on the lower side, but a lot of bets, you do very well.
In my observation of this, Larry, it really does. I'll go back to the interesting thing about trend following for me has always been you could find these audited track records on file with the government. But then these are often managed money companies. Those companies, while they are producing trend following performance, they have the burden to deal with investors who might not know their ass from a hole in the ground and are pulling money in, pulling money out, and all this other kind of stuff. You know that can affect the size and scope of a potential company, even if the strategy is great.
Great is a big deal. Very few people are great. But I read the Market Wizards book, so Mark Menerini and I have become friendly. But if you look at these track records over a period of time, they have one thing that I always find. It's not that I don't have losing periods. I'm mentoring a guy because he had done some shit in the military that I was interested in. So he would tell me how he got through that rough training. So, but we became friends. He had some trading methods, and they were all right. I dug through his stuff, and his systems actually worked until he's going along and he doesn't do something.
He stops following the system.
What he hated was when he made a profit and he lost it and ended up with a loss. He calls me up, I can't stand this. I was ahead and now I'm down. And I said, Claude, this is the deal. You're in a boxing ring. If you're in a boxing ring, it'd be no surprise to you if you get smacked in the face. That's the other person's job, to smack you in the face if you're in a boxing ring. You can't have a big, oh my God, somebody just punched me in the face. You went into a boxing ring.
That attitude, though, is kind of strange because it's almost like if you personalize it that much, an individual like that doesn't seem to imagine that there's other players in the game besides him. He thinks it's just him against the market, whereas there's so many players out there.
I remember there was a guy who used to show up at Mad to get sugar prices. Every fucking day, this guy would show up and walk out. I think I might have had this in a book, but it's a true story. I don't remember the guy's name, but let's call him Henry. Well, he'd come in every day and look at sugar. He said, look, I made $7 million in sugar, and then I lost it. Sugar owes me that money back. He said, now the sugar markets goes on a real move, with a big move. I happened to bump with the administrator. I said, well, you must be happy. No. Why? Sugar's going up. I missed it. What do you mean you missed it? I don't know. I had a cold. And when it started, I was going to pay more. So this guy showed up. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to fuck some girl in the office. I have no idea. But here's the guy shows up, gets the sugar price, and then he doesn't do the trade. What you just talked about is a personality concept.
They're smarter than the market. They're smarter than everyone else. They're going to outsmart it all.
And yet there are people like Kovner and who go along, make a good living, a very good living. Kovner is worth about $5 billion.
Let me read something to you. This is a quote from Buffett from his shareholder meeting the other day, and I think you'll like this one. And they were kind of just asking him about people doing stupid things. And Buffett said, what gives you opportunities is other people doing dumb things. In the 58 years we've been running Berkshire, I would say there's been a great increase in the number of people doing dumb things, and they do big dumb things. I think there's a lot of commonalities between his thinking. I don't want to call him a trend following trader because that's not what he does, but in many ways it is. He makes his money from concentrated bets that have big trends. Now, how he gets there is different than a trend following trader, perhaps. Another line, let me find this. At this same meeting, he was talking about diversification, and Munger was calling it, now he's 99 years old, he's calling it diworsification. And he said, quote, one of the inane things that's taught in modern university education is that a vast diversification is absolutely mandatory in investing in common stocks. That's an insane idea. People don't understand that about trend following. Yeah, you might monitor a lot of markets, but you might make your big money in any given year off just a handful of markets, which is exactly what Buffett and Munger are doing as well. They're making their money off a handful of markets.
That's true. But man, they made a fortune by spreading their bets.
Okay, but if the market's not moving, man can spread their bets. But if the market's not moving, what the hell are they doing? They're not trend following. You can't trade 140 markets at one time. They're not all moving at one time. Different strategies.
I could trade as many things if I can get in and out. That's it. It'll come. I will have those moves. Yes, if I bet 4 times or 20 times my net worth and I have no stops, I'm going to die. People do not want to recognize losses. My mother was a very intelligent woman, and she was a very good card player. She used to say, well, Larry, you don't really have a loss if you don't take it. I said, no, you have the loss. And let me tell you, my mother, when it came to numbers.
Larry, after all your success, obviously your mother was alive to see you have success. So I'm sure at various points before she died, did she ever come to your side and go, oh my gosh, my son figured out this game and I had it all wrong? Or did she go to her grave thinking, oh my gosh, I know a better way than my son?
This is a true story. I had a very big house in Summer, New Jersey, and the house came with a library, dark pine. I took that as my office. It was my Don Corleone office.
You had a cat you were petting as well, too?
Well, so anyway, my mother comes down, my father dies, and I take her up north for the funeral, and she comes into my office. She's like 75 or something. She said, Larry, we're all proud of what you've done, but don't you think you should be in a real business? I turned to her, I said, well, most things I didn't do too well as a kid. I am probably the most successful person in the family. And if I went into the dress business, why would I leave this business where I'm making more money than anybody ever made? Now, I have a younger daughter. Now, kids go to the grandparents or something they like. So my kids, my older one is like my mother. My younger one is not like my mother. She relates to my wife's mother for some reason. So the kid comes, she's like 12 years old. She sits right in the chair that my mother sat. She looks at me and says, Dad, don't you think you want to get into like a regular business?
The whole generation of Height family members on the female side are giving you hell.
Well, not hell, but they don't know what to do. I came up with the whole concept of asymmetrical leverage because we had done something with the guaranteed fund and we made an enormous amount of money. And I was sitting with these guys in England. So we're sitting, these guys went to Cambridge, Oxford, and the equivalent of West Point. And I said, I've just made probably 10 times more than my father made in a lifetime. I said, I've been thinking about this. I'm not 10 times smarter than my father.
You might have had 10 times better technique than your father, though.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I came to the conclusion I made money doing this because I put myself consciously in places that I could get a reasonable bet with a large upside. And everything used to be called options. When David Ricardo, he said, don't ever refuse an option. That confused me for years. I called a friend of mine in England.
It was a hidden leverage note, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And the asymmetric part.
It didn't matter what he was trading because when he says someone offers you, and I saw this in Turkey, the people used to sit in a circle and you got up and you walked over to somebody else and said, I will give you this. And in the words that Ricardo uses, if someone offers you an option, take it. If it goes against you, leave quickly. If it goes for you, stay there. What's that, about 400 years ago?
I want to keep it at something at your mom for a second. Not really on the trading part, but more of a you looking back part, because everyone has to deal with family members that doubt them. I mean, I've dealt with it. How do you feel at that moment when here you've had this life success that should mean something to family and they don't see it? Now, there could be many reasons why they don't see it. It could just be literally horse blinders. There could be some latent jealousy or envy, perhaps.
Both of that happened, which is amazing. Mothers have an instinct. Every time I meet somebody, their kid's like one of my best friends. His son wasn't a whiz at school, but he was a handy kid, so he sort of got into technology and building stuff. But one of the things he did, he bought Tesla. And his family, who my friend's a lawyer, he was a great fighter as a kid. The first thing my friend's wife said to her son, get it, get out. Because mothers are born afraid. And you can see it. When you raise a kid, the first part of the kid's life, you really want to stop the kid from killing himself. Because they don't know. They'll touch the stove until they get a little burn. They just do it. I had to walk this child when he was young, and we were walking across a little bridge in upper New York State, but it was like a 10-foot drop onto rocks. They tried to squeeze between the two, and I kept pulling them away. I said, this is very, very restrictive on the kid, but I don't want the kid to be fall on those rocks. He's going to be mush. Parenting for women become the first part of it all, and they're afraid. First of all, people hate change.
Larry, does this fear thing leave women? I mean, right now, after this COVID thing that happened, it really does look like to me, my observation, and I really don't care what anyone thinks of me when I say this, but it looks like the COVID operation has scared the bejesus out of women permanently. Many women are just permanently afraid of this damn thing. And I think society did this unfairly.
Yeah, but they have a bias. Every once in a while, I meet a woman who's like an eagle. But the majority of women will fall back to motherhood. I don't know why. Yeah, there are women. There are some pretty brave women. I'm not saying it. But in general, and people, everybody should fear for their job. Because machines will do a lot of things. There's a lot of work that a machine could do far better. You're a surfer guy that you wrote in the book.
Bill Dreiss.
Yeah. I wonder how many times he tinkered with his system, or if he ever did. He's got it on a machine, so the orders go in automatically. And then he just stay there with, like Bill Dunn. Bill Dunn basically has done the same stuff. Long-term averages, he rides them down, he rides them up.
This is the cool thing about trend following is all you guys and the guys that came before you and the guys that came before them just said to themselves, okay, hold on. The concept of the madness of crowds is a thing. Long before Daniel Kahneman got a Nobel Prize for it, the concept of madness of crowds is a thing. This is demonstrated in price action. If we know this is going to happen at unpredictable times, how can we put ourselves in a position to ride this madness of crowds when the next one happens? And that seems to be the commonality here, which is if you believe in the madness of crowds, you have an approach to take advantage of that. And you, back to your rule, the Larry Height rule, if you're going to believe in the madness of crowds, but you can't predict it, you're going to be wrong a lot of times when you bet on the madness of crowds. You better have a stop. There you go. That's trend following in many ways.
Yeah, no. When you said it in your rant, you're like, well, yeah, they put in a stop. But I have bought bottoms and sold tops a couple of times. And I came to the conclusion that every time I've done that, it's luck. I mean, because if I could do that regularly, I'd be a lot richer.
Larry, 99% of the population out there, the global population, thinks because of the propaganda in education, they think they are supposed to buy the bottom and sell the top. 99.9% of people think that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. And they don't even know what the bottom or the top is.
Exactly.
I've been thinking about people who lose their fortunes, which there was a guy named Terrence O'Neill started this, but he went to one of the big brokerage firms in California. He was doing a dissertation. They looked at 10,000 accounts, and he found this strange thing that people will sell their winnings, take that profit to average down on their losers. And after that, many more papers came out. And of course, you mentioned it. There are a lot of people take their relationship with the market as a personal one. I had Buffett stock for a long time. I noticed that Buffett has never, ever sent me a Christmas card. Never. That did give me 7 times on money, but never a Christmas card. Nothing. So I figured out the market doesn't know me, but it doesn't hate me either. It doesn't really give a shit.
Don't care.
That's it.
Larry, as you say that, though, it reminds me of that First Market Wizards book. So you're in there, and Ed Sekota's in there, Rich Dennis is in there, Bruce Kovner's in there, I think Michael Marcus is in there, all these trend-following traders. Every podcast you and I have, you essentially restate that book in different ways with different stories and different vantages. I just think that most people, for whatever reason, can't accept conceptually what it is that you're saying, philosophically, because I think they think that you're just bullshitting them. They think, Larry, he's a funny guy. He's just bullshitting me. They really don't get that you are telling them exactly how you think and exactly what you do. They don't get that part.
By the way, you know Ed Sekota well.
I don't know so well. I mean, okay.
Pretty well. I mean, he did me a very good favor one time.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. Somebody told me that in the beginning, he was a long-only trader, or he liked going long much more than he liked going short.
I know something about that currently, but I'm going to refrain from saying it on air. But I think it's an interesting observation. So I think if somebody wanted to go down the path of looking at a trend following portfolio, let's say across commodity futures, and you wanted to examine the idea of doing it from a long only bias, skipping the short trades, that might be a worthy project to go investigate.
Oh, I did that. And I'll tell you, you do pretty well. It's very interesting. You actually don't do well going short most of the time. But when you put the two together, you actually make more money than if you just go long. I don't know why.
I wanted to take it back to something that you started this podcast with, because I've been thinking about it the way you brought it up a while ago here in this conversation, which is the culture thing. And I wanted to share something with you. It sounds a little wacky. I really didn't expect to read this thread on Twitter, but I've read some stuff from this guy before. And look, I'm talking about this guy, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, clearly a psychopath, and he killed people. But the interesting thing about him is 167 IQ, got into Harvard at age 15. And I was reading pieces on a Twitter thread today that someone put out there of his manifesto. It's amazing what that guy was seeing about modern culture and what technology is doing to us. He's obviously lost a screw. He's a killer, all that kind of stuff. So my disclaimers are out of the way. However, his views on technology are damn interesting and what it's doing to culture and civilization.
There was a girl that I met who was crazy. I had this girlfriend in college, and she was her friend. They grew up as kids in New York on the Lower East Side. What happened was this girl literally was nuts, but she was brilliant, and she couldn't control what she says. She would say things, blurt them out, and they're so spot on, absolutely right. But she would blurt out these things, and they were right. The first time I met her, I was with this other girl, She watched it for a while and she nailed the relationship perfectly. But she was right.
I think some of these people have minds like you and I. Okay, maybe people are going to say we're smart, not smart, whatever. I like to think I'm okay smart, but I still want to have normal life experiences. I enjoy that too. But I think some of these folks that are on the spectrum, perhaps, some of these folks that are pushing the IQ level at obscene scores, I think some of them don't necessarily care about their personal life. They don't care about other people's personal life. They're in some crazy search for the truth, and only the truth motivates them, or what they think is the truth. And sometimes it is the truth. But I think they block out everything else. I mean, look at this guy Kaczynski. He lived in a cabin in a hole forever. They block out everything else and just stay focused. Look, I'll share with you one time. Years ago when I did that documentary film and you appeared in that documentary film, I interviewed a Nobel Prize winner who was famous for having Asperger's, Vernon Smith. And I remember that we were setting up in his office at college campus in George Mason University in Arlington, Virginia. I was kind of new to this whole thing, and he's kind of a famous guy, Nobel Prize winner. And I said, hey, Dr. Smith, we're going to set some lights up in your office. Is it okay? Do you need some space, or will we bother you? And he looked at me straight in the eyes, no emotion. He goes, I won't know you're here. And that's the focus thing, where I think literally some of these people have minds where they can block out all distractions.
Wait, do you think Michael Jordan is not a bit of that? Michael Jordan is into athletics in a really major way. To be that good, you have to have that kind of dedication. I could have been a very, very rich man if I would just say that meant, but I didn't.
Newsflash, Larry, you're not broke.
That's true. Anyway, I hadn't heard from you, so I, figured we'd get together. But I'm really thinking that people who don't use stop. See, Buffett, I could tell you, Buffett has a very simple system, really. Here's how this started. I'm watching television, and there was a guy, he was a Jewish guy, but he went under the name Adam Smith. He has this interview with this guy. He had hair, but it says he's kind of like a little not dressed quite correctly. He's that bizarre, but what he wears is obviously second to this guy. He's like me. I'm looking at the guy and I said, this guy's very famous. I don't know, but he's a gazillionaire. Now, I was doing pretty well. I had rented this tax shelter, and I'm making like $500,000 a year in that game. And I kind of think, hey, I must be somewhat smart. I said, why don't I understand what this guy is saying? I understand that he's logical, but I don't understand. It's like he's talking Greek, and I'm talking in English. So I got so interested, I went out. I said, all right, I'd like to get all his trades, but I can't do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the trades that Berkshire made. I went over every trade. I went into value line. Basically, I figured out when he bought the stocks he bought. So then I go get the value line thing, and I began to understand Buffett's algorithm. And you can write it out. Yes, he knows a lot about industries and businesses. Okay, so he has what they call a Jewish cycle. He thinks like a Jewish, but that kind of person would think. He looks at, first of all, as Graham taught him, he looks for the market to be irrational. That's his opportunity. And how does he figure out he wants a stock? He'll take the cash flow yield, and he'll put whatever that number is, draw a line, and then he puts the price that he's paying for the stock plus the debt. And he'll look at that and ask how many times he's getting better than the 10-year stock. That formula more or less works. What Buffett is, he's a different kind of trend follower. He'll go in, and as long as the business is giving him that yield, He doesn't care about the market. The market gives him a currency if he wants to buy something. When things go down, he likes to buy things that are going to give him a cash flow steady. If the price of the stock doesn't varies to him, he likes that. In fact, when he can, he likes to buy his stock cheaper.
But like anybody, though, he still needs that stock to go up. And I got a quote here also from his most recent shareholder meeting a couple days ago. And this is quoting Buffett. We've got a business at Apple, meaning he's got an investment at Apple. He goes, quote, I don't understand the phone at all, but I do understand consumer behavior. Now, isn't that a hell of a line? I don't understand the phone at all, but I understand consumer behavior. Well, how the hell do you measure consumer behavior? Well, with the price.
Yeah, absolutely. But he uses a price to buy. And sometimes he gets into deals and he gets out of them. I don't know how he does in his private deals. He's very much getting into lithium mining in California. He owns some big companies that do that. Lithium could be a very big deal. Coca-Cola is his favorite kind of stock. Think about it. I remember when Kennedy got shot and the stock market took a dive, very hard dive. And I remember thinking to myself, it doesn't matter. I'm going to buy a Coke this morning. It doesn't matter if the president was shot.
Yeah, people are still going to drink Coke.
People are still going to drink Coke.
I want to shift it to something else, though, really quick while I've got you. I'm curious. I know you're home there in New York City. I've been there. And here I am. I'm in Asia right now. And I was back in the States December, January, and I saw some things I didn't like. But how do the streets feel? I mean, you're in a nice section of New York City, and I know you like to walk. How do the streets feel in New York City these days after the pandemic? Do you feel like things are the same? Do you notice things that are different? What's your observation just on the streets? 'Cause you're a big walker.
I feel that I've outlived my time here. I do not understand. I am living in a world that I have no grasp of. These things about sex changes, the things of trying to get kids at 50, they say it's much better if you're going to be transgender to get the operation early. I look at what happened in the world and I feel I don't know this world.
You should come get a place over here. Seriously. You'll all of a sudden be like, oh my gosh, this is how I grew up. It's nice over here.
Well, it's safer. Anti-Semitism has really gone up a lot over the last couple of years. So my wife really is emotional about these things. Just, she always said, I'm not going to a concentration camp. I said, there's no concentration. I said, you want to leave it where you want to go? Let's get an apartment in Israel. And I said to my wife, do you realize that bombs going off in stores and other places, this is not a safe place to be? I'm not saying that totally, but you go into a war zone. Do you see what's happening in France?
Yeah. Let me keep you at your New York City comment. Does that mean on the streets you feel things have changed? It's not the same experience you had on the streets years ago.
Sure. I mean, I lived in my English wife lived in sales. It's a working class neighborhood. I didn't think of it as working class. This is where I grew up. To me, the whole thing has changed. Now, I'm a very self-involved person, an only child, but just generally, I think about the small sector of things that I like, and I don't think about the rest. But the world has changed. There was a crazy guy on the train.
I saw that.
Well, you know what? Turns out the guy actually who was crazy had fits of very niceness. His family explained he got the money, he entertained in the subway, but he was a crazy guy.
He had like 40 arrests. He had punched a 67-year-old woman. He tried to kidnap a 7-year-old girl. Who knows what's going to happen in the case? I'm not going to try and prejudge it.
I will tell you what will happen. They're going to go after this Marine. He's going to go to jail.
They'll build a statue for the dead guy.
Yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And no, you want to know how I feel? I do not feel safe. And I'm used to feeling safe enough.
I would think you're in an interesting position because that's a cool place you have there. And I'm sure you think about leaving it to family and stuff. But I'm imagining if I was in your shoes, I would have to look ahead and say, okay, if I leave this to family, would I really want my family living in this environment? That's a tricky thing.
Yeah, it's also not as big as people think it is, too, because what happens in journalism, you should know this, is old saying in journalism, if it bleeds, it leads.
There's a lot of bleeding in America these days.
And a lot of strangeness.
Yes, that's the part. That's why I love being here. There's not strange here.
I don't really understand. And everybody I know is not that happy about their situations. It's so wacky.
What's really going on, too, from my observation, is it's essentially a battle between, let's say, I'm Gen X, you're a little older than Baby Boomer, but then it's really these generations above age 50, the younger below 30 just seems to be scared. And look, I'm sure I have some clients below 30, probably great people and stuff, but overall, it seems to be a very strange mass thinking in the under age 30, where it's like, instead of being logical and pragmatic and being tough, it's more about, hey, let's have a group therapy session nonstop 24/7 all the time. And that just seems to lead nowhere. If all of us are being honest, we look at these great buildings that were built in New York City and Paris and around the world in the last several hundred years, or even going back farther to the Greeks and Romans. None of this stuff would have been achieved with the namby-pamby attitude of some of the young people today. I mean, none of it would have been achieved. The people, our ancestors that built these buildings and built these civilizations, these were great people. I'm sorry, regardless of their errors and the problems they had, they were still great, tremendous, successful people.
But as Jesse Livermore pointed out, it's always the people. And people do the same thing. I never understood why Jesse Livermore blew his brains out, but he did. But his way of doing this, one of his things is he always had a 10% stop. So how did he lose all that money? He says the number one thing is he goes down, it's over. Jesse Livermore, why did Jesse Livermore not use that rule?
I hear you on that, but at least during Jesse Livermore's generation, there were men building New York City and building towers, whereas a lot of young people today are simply crying that they need a sex change. So it's a very different world.
But we're still doing things. Our technology has moved way forward. We live in a very immature society that you get whatever you want. If you have a credit card, you can live anywhere. You get anything you want. So we have these people who don't know. I have a rich cousin, and he had something that we were 14 and 15. And I asked my mother why I can't have that thing. And my mother said, we can't afford it. There's no debate about it. We can't afford it.
We don't have that anymore. That attitude's gone.
That's gone. That is absolutely gone. That makes everybody a namby-pamby. But don't forget, we are doing great things in science. We have done some tremendous work using the computers. We can make more drugs and see which works don't. AI has a very big future. We're building different kinds of buildings.
Something has gone wrong, though. Something has gone wrong.
I'm going to tell you right now, wrong. Feminism.
I agree. 100%.
When women wanted the rights of men, they got them. And guess what? They got the illnesses of men, too. You can't say to a woman, hey, you look really good, sexy. You can maybe say that to your wife or girlfriend, but you just can't say something like that. So the bad side of this feminine thing was people would then expect I'm considered rich by people I grew up with. They'll always say to me, well, it's your money. Why would you care? Well, what do you mean, why I care? Well, you're there. You might as well have a good time. I said, it's this idea of entitlement. Look what's happening in France. That's not even America. Just because they want to raise the time you get your Social Security, they're having riots in France. France is a very old country with a system of laws that they're like England. And yet they're in the street arguing because they don't have enough money. And we could see something now happen in America where America will do some sort of phony deal so they can keep getting money. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Let me offer a clarification, though, on the feminism part, whether it's men or women listening or both. I'm sure most of my audience is primarily men, but I'm sure there's some women that listen. You and I are not attempting to have a sexist conversation at all. But let's be honest, people. There is a huge fight, whether it's an unspoken fight or it's a spoken fight. There's a huge fight between American men and American women. And there is a chasm growing between the two. And you can see that across every aspect of life, especially in birth rates. And eventually, if men and women don't like each other, people say, oh, there's too many people on this planet. It only takes a few regressions to look at a reduced birth rate and realize what can happen to the global population. If we got this structure set up where men and women are physically and mentally equal and everybody's the same, and now we're just going to fight, and we're going to throw away every experience that we've had in human history that's got us to this point, and we're going to reduce the birth rate. This is not productive for civilization, in my opinion.
Well, you're right. It's come to everybody's entitled. I'll give you an example. Everybody thinks they're entitled. I used to see that in England a lot. The big thing was where your family was. You were entitled. And you're not working class. You don't work. Now everybody wants it. There's a guy who wrote a book. I don't know if it was a guy either, called Brit Think, US Think. The guy says, somebody walking down the street in England sees a young guy in a new Rolls-Royce convertible sitting with a blonde. Great-looking girl, great-looking guy. In England, they say, he should not have that car. He shouldn't have that. I should have that car. He must have stole something from someone. Behind every fortune, there's a crime. Where in America, the America I grew up and the America you grew up,
we admired that.
We admired that. The crazy girl, when they were out, she had come from the Lower East Side, very poor neighborhood in New York. She looked at me, Larry, you wish you were born on the Lower East Side. And she's right, because in America, the dream that I grew up with, you come from nothing and you make it. My children don't have my hunger.
Hunger creates imagination.
Yeah. Let's say the biggest commercial thing you've ever done are these podcasts. You didn't invent podcasts, but you made a whole industry. But in a lot of ways, podcasts reminds me of radio. But on the radio, we had stories.
When you come on my show, that's what you do. You share stories.
Yeah, that's what it's about. And the stories are the way people teach.
To go to your story, though, in London with the guy and the Rolls Royce and the blonde, the jealousy and the envy. When I look at American political fights now, every American political fight, regardless of what they say they're fighting about, it's all jealousy, it's all envy, and it's all it is. People have learned how to use the political system to get money. The Tocqueville book, Democracy in America. It's two wolves and a lamb going out for dinner and asking, what's for dinner? Well, guess what? It's the lamb. And so look, there's a problem. And I don't see a way out because people have lost that thing that you described you had as a young man, where you could see the rich guy, you could see the successful guy. Maybe he got it because he was a con. Maybe he didn't. You don't know. You don't care. You're a young man and you say, I'm going to strive to try to get there myself. And that part is missing. Some people still have it. Now, I'm not going to say all young people don't have that, but a switch is flipped.
Yeah, and it's a world that I don't understand.
Where do you want to live now? Go to Singapore, man. Seriously, you went to Singapore. It's hot. You might not like that, but you could go to Singapore. Literally, it's going to require no effort to move in. You just have to find a place, whatever, but you could do that immediately. It's like safe. You could just go to Singapore or Tokyo, either one.
I am living my last year, and I'm very big for my convenience. Orleans worked for me for 25 years. I have a friend whose son just graduated economics, and would you have a talk with him? I get on the phone and say, how am I going to talk to this kid? And I start with a question. I said, where do you want to be in 10 years? What would your life look like? Because I'm a great believer. If you don't name it, you can't claim it. You got to do something. I believe in goals. I think goals work very well. Even though you wanted to be a great athlete, you were a pretty good catcher, but you never went on to become Yogi Berra or whatever. But the fact is, you have to have a goal. You have to have action after the goal. You just can't say, I want it, and it doesn't come out of the air. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm thinking about, all right, I'm going to ask this question. And then I said, hold on, I'm going to ask myself, where do you want to be? Well, I kind of know I actually don't want anything. There's nothing in the world that I want desperately. I just don't. I don't care about much. I don't want anything.
I think you like sharing, though. I think you like sharing experiences.
I like that. I like teaching. I really do, because you also learn a lot from people you're teaching. I always used to say, if I were Kennedy, I was born a Kennedy, I got that wealth. If it were me, I would change my name to Riley and see what I would do. I wouldn't give the money back, but I would want to see what I did if I wasn't a Kennedy. I am, and I'm sure you are this way, I am very proud of what I accomplished. And I would not have been happy if someone gave me $20 million. You're the same way. I will bet you do not have to work, especially where you live.
I don't have to work, and I don't even call it work. If I get on and do a podcast with interesting people, I talked to a lady recently on the podcast. She was 102 years old, and she was still sharp as a tack. I had a guy on the podcast recently who was the performance coach for Phil Jackson and the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. It was a really interesting conversation. His roommate during college was Dr. J, Julius Erving. I just love these kinds of experiences that I get to chat with all these people. And look, this is not hugely profitable for me like Joe Rogan, but maybe one day it will be, who knows? But I love the fact that whatever I've built has engendered trust. People trust that if they come on and they talk with me, I'll give it a fair shake. I'll be curious. I'll ask good questions. I'll stay focused. That's just enabled me to keep having these conversations while I live 8,000 miles away from you, Mr. Height. It's awesome.
Yeah, but you don't have to work for that communication, where in reality you do. But we're so used to getting things so easy. You and I, and a large portion of people, maybe don't do it. You get on a plane and go somewhere. I went and did a deal in Australia. I had a couple of names, and I wound up doing this deal in Australia. I was with a friend of mine married an Australian girl, and her sister was there. She said, "You just going to Australia?" Because to them it was a big deal. But I said, "No, there's a lead here," and I just went, and then I made the deal. But the point is, I could get on a plane and go anywhere I want. Well, maybe I'm not that unique. A lot of people can do it. They don't have to fly to Concord, but you get there. And I think things are so easy for people that they fight over namby-pamby things. You can't say a lot of things.
I have to self-censor myself in this podcast quite a bit. And sometimes I have to actually censor you because you might say something too interesting. I'll share something with you. You might get a kick out of this. So a young person that I know, I thought would be a perfect candidate to introduce to Jerry Parker. Jerry Parker, who is the most successful of the turtle traders trained by Richard Dennis. There's a lot of reasons why I thought this could be a good introduction. I explained to this young person a little bit, and I got a response like a day later. And I told them, I said, hey, one of the things you need to do is read my book on the turtles. You needed to do that. I've sent people your way. I've sent some other people assorted ways, but I don't really do this a lot. I don't really try to play matchmaker. This young person writes me back and says, how long is the book? I'm lifting a finger. I'm not contacted Jerry or anything like that yet. Here I am. I'm trying to
be a good guy.
And it's like, how long is the book? That's the younger generation where it's like, they are missing something. They're missing something. If I was told at age 20 or 25 or whatever, somebody said, hey, here's an article, and it was an article about Jerry Parker, or it was an article about Larry Hite or Ed Sakota. And I read that one-page article and I realized who these people were. And I said, oh gosh, they're really interesting people. I want to meet them, even if it's for an informational interview. And then somebody said, well, hey, I can make an introduction, but I really think you need to be prepped. Why don't you read this Market Wizards book first so you know a little bit more about this Hite guy? I can't imagine uttering from my mouth the phrase, how long is the book? I can't imagine that.
Maybe you want to ask people, maybe young people who can explain this. If I want something, first of all, the person doesn't know much about reading.
Fair enough, as a young person in high school and college, I'm not going to say I was a voracious reader either, so fair enough.
No, but they don't know how to read a book. You are reading a book. I don't read that much fiction. I read to learn something.
Exactly.
And there is a way to actually do that. I know what I'm looking to find out, and then I say, how am I going to get this information? So what I did with the Buffett thing, I took 3 or 4 guys. I formed a group, a study group. Now, I went back and I got Buffett's Berkshire trades. I have a cousin of mine. I see he has data about his trading. And I finally made him use stop. So he's made himself some money. I said, you don't understand. You don't check these records and understand what the odds are. And he didn't get it. He bookkeeps these records, but he doesn't ask the fucking what the numbers are saying.
Do you know why I think I got trend following? I think I got trend following because I was age 24, 25 when I was first exposed to it. And I can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been the Market Wizards book, but it was because I had been through an MBA program. I was not a great student. I was bored out of my mind. I thought to myself, I'm never going to be an investor that's going down the Warren Buffett path of trying to study the balance sheets and stuff. And so the moment that I read that there was something else that didn't have anything to do with balance sheets, and there was this underground army of these trend following traders, all unrelated and unconnected, and they didn't study balance sheets, instant light bulb went off. That's me. I didn't even know what it was exactly at that moment. I was like, that's me. I'm going that direction. Because if they can do it, I can figure it out.
If you bet like Tom bets, you're never going to lose.
Tom was not a high leverage trend following trader. He was more shooting for 10 to 15%, I think.
There's a beautiful chart in one of your books from Bill Dunn. Bill Dunn goes down 40%, but he always comes back. You know the chart I'm talking about.
He actually went down more than that. I think he went down over 60% on one.
Yeah, at one time. But he always came back.
people don't realize when they see that 40% down in trend following traders, a lot of people say to themselves, oh my gosh, why did you let that trade go down 40%? They don't understand that it was a trendless period of small losses adding up to the drawdown. And that's the light bulb moment when you realize that you're shrinking the position size, you're taking small losses, you're preserving capital, it's a trendless period. And then when the trends come, you got capital and you make it back up.
Yeah, because it's Darwinian. You get rid of the losers. In many ways, I live my life that way. And you do. You've had 100 girlfriends since I know you.
100? Hold on. 100.
Maybe more.
That sounds like a high number. You're making me sound like some kind of Asian Casanova.
I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt here. But the point is, you go through, and if something doesn't work, you cut your loss. And I'm not kidding. I told this story 1,000 times. I learned that.
Your Harry story is famous on this podcast.
You can do that. But I think that the Darwinian principle is a major principle of life. You either adjust or die or flounder. But eventually, though, if all you did is buy 52-week highs, take it right out of Jesse Livermore, and you go into the hot industry, and you buy 3 stocks that are hot in there, so you have movement, right? And you have stocks. You will find out very wealthy. You just will. The price tells you the whole story, because the rest of the balance sheets, I was once trying to take a company public, and the guy said to me, look, Larry, I can make this earnings yield 95 cents or $1.10, but I can't make it in the middle. But he was telling me he could jack it up by the accounting. That tells you a lot about balance sheets.
Can you get permission from your wife to come travel to Asia? Are you allowed to come back to Asia and visit?
My wife loves traveling. She loves it. I used to say I traveled for money, and that's why I went places. But it wasn't bad, but it's not as glamorous. When you're on the road and you've got to move every 3 or 4 days to go to the next spot, it's not so glamorous. I mean, no one man questioned what I spent on myself, or they spent when we were making money. But no one said that I had a great time. The most interesting thing about selling the product, and this was fascinating, it was I know a lot about training. I don't know about many other things. I know what I do works. But when you speak to somebody in another language about it, it's fascinating how each culture is different.
You bring up an interesting thing. Like if you came to a place like Saigon, and I'll give a little pitch here about travel in a second, but if you came to a place like Saigon here, I mean, I don't know in this current economic climate how much people want to pay and all that kind of stuff. So it might not be a great business thing, but in terms of getting an audience of people that want to listen, you would find a remarkable audience. I'll say this about travel, and I've thought about this a lot. I think travel for the sake of travel for very short trips doesn't resonate with me at all. I tell people, and I told this actually the last time my parents came to Asia right before the pandemic, I said, look, if you're going to come, you're staying for a month. You're not just coming and running around and all that kind of stuff. It's too taxing. I tell people also that if you come to a place like where I'm at right now, you book a month, you book 3 months, you book 6 months, whatever, because it's that once you settle in and you start living, then it's a different experience. So many people have been trained. I'm not talking about you, but so many people have been trained to like, a 6-day trip to Greece, a 6-day trip to Greece to travel from Asia or America or whatever sounds like the most awful experience I can imagine. To travel around the world for 6 fucking days? Are you kidding me? I can't imagine doing that. I want to go live somewhere. I want to live somewhere.
I took a trip around the world on a jet. It cost us $100,000 a piece to do this. It was done by Four Seasons. And, well, I always loved the Four Seasons hotel chain very much. But
It's tiring.
it was tiring. You had to have a lot of money to pay for this. But we now are taking a boat and we're going to try some traveling in Europe. Instead of having changing hotels, the boat will go to the place and we'll get out and walk around and spend time there. Because you're right, you don't know much if you're in for 2 days.
I want to live somewhere.
Yeah, but that's a very smart thing. But very few people have that time. You get paid to be an adventurer. That's how you get your content. The more bizarre and interesting of a place, the more people want to hear about it.
I've kept you too long.
Yeah, I've got to go to work, but I'll call you again. See you later.
I thought I'd bring it up with you and see how you felt about this. I caught a passage from the film director, Jim Cameron, Terminator, Titanic, all the big movies, Avatar, all these things. He's made gazillions. Someone asked him about becoming a film director. And they were essentially asking, how do you do it? Asking for permission, all that stuff. Cameron was very blunt. He's like, look, if you've got to ask that question, you're never going to do it. You're just never going to do it if you've got to ask the question, because if you really want to do it, you're going to figure out a way to do it. I thought that was so simple and sweet.
I think it's totally fucking correct.
What's that?
I think it's documented before that letter was. I've been honestly for 4 minutes. I think it's fucking correct. My father used to say to me, do it. If somebody doesn't like it, they'll tell you. That's a very pragmatic way to go through life, unless you get shot in somebody's house.
But Larry, why did most people not do that? Most people just don't do that. I don't know how Cameron learned that, if it was family or friends or just School of Hard Knocks, but this is not something that's typically passed down.
I know a guy who could tell you the answer. Go look in the mirror. Here you are. You've invented this business. You're one of these guys. You never asked permission. You asked permission to get us on, but you got the concept and you ran with it. In fact, there were people who didn't want you to write your book.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I had lawsuits and threats of lawsuits over content that I've dispersed, which has always just been essentially educational.
Yeah, but Richard Dennis did not want you to write about what he was doing. Or he might have in some ways, but mostly not.
In his defense, he never specifically said that, but other people definitely said that in legal documents, for sure. There's definitely people that played that game. But on the other side, people like you, for example, Bill Dunn, Ed Sakota, other people were like, oh, this guy's got some energy. He seems to be saying the right things. He seems to understand this, so we'll share with him. And then we can help extend the message. There was other people that saw it the other way.
I had this, so I could do things that I want because I can do them. And then why wouldn't I? So I was thinking of this. I was thinking of the program where I'm going to tell you the events that are going to happen in the next 2 years. Anybody who follows this program will make a lot of money.
It's a program you want to do?
Yeah, it's a program in which I am old enough. I know now the events that will make a lot of money coming. I can see it. I can see exactly how to do it. And I thought, well, maybe what I would do is I go to my calculate what events will happen and how anybody who just follows the events. I used to have a feeling when I traded the markets that the markets will tell me what to do by the trend. I was not going to tell the market. I never had Victor Victor Nemaho's idea that he could beat the Japanese country, Japan. He's sitting in a room in New York, and he took on the yen. He went looking for a fight, and then he blew out. But you and a lot of other entrepreneurs go ahead because what that guy said is the absolute truth. If you have to ask for permission, you are not ready. Did you sit with your mother and father and your uncles and decide if you should go into that business?
No, there were a couple guy friends that I knew that liked the idea back in the day of going online and dispersing information, but those kinds of people couldn't hang with it, meaning ultimately they could only invest a week or 2 weeks of time before, oh my God, I need a job with a man because I need consistency. Even at the age of 25, I saw guys that could not possibly deal with the concept of uncertainty or risk or speculation. It was like, oh shit, I got to get a job. Oh shit, I got to be like everybody else.
Yeah, a bunch of people like me with some handicaps. One of them asked,
You're calling yourself a handicap?
the things that handicapped me turned out to be the best things that ever happened to me.
Blessing in disguise.
Blessing in disguise. Yeah, because I knew I had to have something new and interesting going from where I came from because of those breathing problems and other things like that. It made me think. And the question, when you were playing baseball, I was on the bench. So I was sitting there, I said, what can I do? I can't do this because I can't do that. And then if you look what I've accomplished, it's amazing. But the one thing you know when you're coming from that place is nobody's going to give you permission.
Mm-mm. I got to keep it at something you just said for a second when you talked about baseball. Maybe you've heard me say this before, but I don't think we've talked about it. You remember the trader Julian Robertson, and he had this group of young kids they called the Tiger Cubs that became quite famous, a lot of them running billions and big funds and whatnot. Anyway, back in the day when I played baseball, before the age of 12, there was a guy on my team that was really terrible. He literally struck out every at bat the entire season. And then I thought, my gosh, is this the same guy? All these years later, seeing him on Facebook. And then I realized he was one of Robertson's Tiger Cubs. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, we played baseball together, didn't we? And I said, you struck out every time, didn't you? He started laughing. He's like, yeah. And the implication being I might have struck out every time at baseball at age 11 or 12, but he became one of Julian Robertson's Tiger Cubs and has made a fortune.
And he probably could have lost a fortune.
I love that kind of stuff, though.
Julian lives, well, he no longer lives, but he lives about he lives on the top floor. He did. He lives in my building. It's just we lived in my building. But he gave a lot of charity. He must have been responsible for $4 billion worth of charity, Julie.
He had a pretty up and down career, but I mean, ultimately, he found the bag. He did it.
Gave away $4 billion.
Wow.
So that means they did some shit right. I had an interview. I fucked up with him so badly. It was terrible.
I got a question for you because we're in the same headspace. Hustle. What I'm going to say, maybe people out there are going to disagree, but I don't think I'm wrong. What's happened to hustle? Where's hustle gone, Larry?
One word. I'm telling you, one word, I'm going to nail it. Entitlement. Entitlement has robbed people of hustle. They think it should come to them. They believe not in equal opportunity, but what they believe in is everybody should have the same thing. Even though you can't play basketball, you expect you should be as good on the court as Jordan.
It's a crazy fantasy that we've fallen into, isn't it?
Yeah, because Michael Jordan came with tremendous talent. Then he put tremendous effort. Michael Jordan worked as hard as Da Vinci. He really spent a lot of mental time on what he's doing. The idea of that you're entitled to what he has is insane. Why should you have what this guy who had talent, who had good parents that guided him the right way too? These people earned all this shit. My kids grew up and they wake up, they got a $3 million trust fund. They didn't do shit for it. They're lovely, they're nice people, but they didn't do anything. And their father had a couple ideas that went right. Accountant said, why don't you give it to them? That way you'll deduct the taxes. I said, no, I give half. And these guys wound up with $3 million. They didn't do anything. And one of them's got a PhD. The other one's a shrink. But they didn't do anything to get that $3 million.
Let me keep it at that entitlement for a second. That's a really prescient insight from you. It's right on the money. Let's pull it apart a little bit more, because a lot of people don't really understand that if they go the Larry Hite direction, maybe if they go the Mike Covel direction, if they go this direction of taking some risk, overcoming hurdles, getting around uncertainty, figuring out problems, that the joy that you feel for that is a million times more wonderful than getting free money from somebody. The free money from somebody doesn't make you feel good. What makes you feel good is if I read Larry Hite's story and I see Larry Hite overcame this and he overcame that, but I'm not even in your shoes. And you can never fully explain how great it feels to overcome all of these hurdles, but it feels awesome when people get into the mindset of overcoming something and getting the reward versus someone just saying, hey, here's a bunch of money.
Always, I once said to a friend of mine, if I was born a Kennedy, what I would have done is I would have changed my name to Riley. I keep all the money. Do not think that I would give up a penny. I put it somewhere. I would give myself 10 or 20 years to see what I could do without my name. That would be the adventure to me. Just like I did this and you did what you did, part of it was the adventure. They're actually doing something that never did before, didn't had to invent all this shit, make it up as you're going along. But that's so much fun that I pity the kids who were born a Kennedy. Really. You're slotted into shit. And if you don't have balls enough to walk out, one of the things you gotta give John F. Kennedy, he did not have to go into the Navy. His father was well connected. He could have got that medal for sitting in an office. The Kennedys would have bought Chicago for him. That's a fact. But still in all, he tried it. Yeah, his father was very happy for it, but he did it. And he was Catholic. We never had a Catholic president before. Broke that ground. There's a lot of people who miss out. I mean, think of the fun that Jackie Robinson had and the way he used to play baseball. He was always trying to steal bases. He brought a different kind of baseball and he integrated. Think about how he would feel having done all that new shit. No amount of money if I give you $1 billion.
Here's my theory about why people have not gone this path in the past and why perhaps even more don't go this path now. Everybody is watching everybody. Everybody is comparing to everybody, especially on these social media and these apps and all this stuff. So instead of sitting back and struggling with something where you have no support system and you've got to figure out this puzzle. I love how Ed Seykota talks about that he went into markets to figure out the puzzle, but essentially to be an entrepreneur, a trader, or whatnot, you're figuring out puzzles. If you're not comfortable to sit there in the silence, to sit there with the uncertainty and try to figure out the puzzle without all of your friends trying to help you, because your friends really don't give a shit about you. And let's be honest, I mean, they can't help you solve the puzzle. You have to solve the puzzle. And so I think what's happening today is that too many people, instead of thinking about the puzzle of what they really want to do, they're too worried about what everyone might think of them. And that is terrible. That's what's going on so much, where people are losing the ability to have a dream because they're so afraid of what some anonymous person or some friend they knew 30 years ago might say on social media. It's crazy.
But you saw the advantage I had because I couldn't do that shit. Because I was not going to play ball. I was not going to do this. That made the winning sweeter. I have people come up to me. I don't know why the book company doesn't seem to care. But tell me about the book. I had somebody from NASA calling me because I met her husband. And she said, I want to meet Larry Haight. She was at Stanford. I did my PhD on Larry Haight's book. And there I was training 2 weeks ago in Colorado, called from NASA to me, and then we would talk. Now, that is fun. And what makes the book work is people just what the world needs. Yeah, I had a handicap. That actually said, just like the death that's coming, I could use that in a bad way and cry about who I'm never going to see again. Or I could say, no, I can invert this. I'm going to have some good times. I'm changing. I've decided I'm changing the world. That's what happened to you. And he was very right. If you have to ask somebody for permission, you're never going to get permission. My father used to say to me, do it. If somebody doesn't want it, they'll let you know.
What do you also think about the idea of this constant communication? I think it hurts. Well, let me give you an example. So in the early to mid 90s, I wanted to meet people like you, but I didn't meet you till 2005. But I was meeting a lot of your peers, maybe starting in let's say 94. There was really no internet at that moment in time. There was internet really in 95, 96, but 94 was an interesting break. And I was able to go to so many events where you'd have all these interesting people, again, most of your peers, and you could listen to them. You could hear from them. But if you weren't at those events, you couldn't hear from them. So I understood at those moments, I was hearing something very valuable. If I was in a room with 100 people and the speaker was John W. Henry, and it was 1995, and Barings Bank had just happened, and he was giving a presentation, he was talking about, didn't say he was the winner of Barings, even though he was. When he was talking about his trading technique and how he viewed the world, I remember sitting in rapt attention in that Marriott right there at the World Trade Towers. But I remember sitting there just thinking, I am receiving information that only 100 people in this room are receiving. I mean, maybe there was some reporter there and maybe they would have put a few nuggets of his speech in the paper or something, but you just knew that this was something valuable. I remember that feeling was very energizing. Whereas today, I don't think people are able to recognize, because information is ubiquitous, it's everywhere. They don't know how to recognize what's the valuable shit and what's just the shit.
That gets to me with my next screwy idea. I know I can lay out in front of you what's going to happen. I can identify And the reason I wanted to do this exercise with you, because you know, all the information to become a billionaire is out. It's in public domain. I was going to sit with you and tell you what's going to happen and how I'm going to make money out of it, and how you would make money. I wanted to talk with you about, first of all, I wanted to just do it, although it's a stupid thing to do because other people will come. But I just want to do it because using trend following, this is not trend following. I'm picking a great bet. I don't have the protection of cross-the-board trading, but I think I know the next big thing and in the next big collapse. And I was going to sit with you and say, look, given this date, here's what you want to do, and here's how you find the information. It's all public that you can do this.
Why do you, at your youthful teenage years, why are you constantly trying to figure out, look, okay, I know you've got part of your net worth in trend following type stuff. I know you've got other strategies. You've got other bets you want to make. You're telling me about another bet you want to make right now. You are the consummate speculator. You just want to go. So you start this conversation off by telling me you've only got 7 years statistically left. But here you are telling me a few minutes later, fuck it, Mike, let's go speculate. Let's go make $1 billion. Can you explain this Larry Hite mindset?
Sure. And you know the answer. It's a lot of fucking fun.
It's a lot of fun.
I have always found that it's interesting with women to tease them. They love it. So you have this little banter is what makes the relationship work. Teasing each other, among other things. Doing something is fun. I'm telling you.
Let me keep you at that for a second. Larry, do you think people have forgot how to have fun? People think fun is going to the next NFL game to have the next beer, the next thing that you've been doing your whole life. That's not fun. Fun is the adventure. Fun is the shit that you don't know what's going to happen next. That's what's fun.
Well, one of my debates with my wife, or my wife is a consumer. She reads about 7 books a week. Okay? She's a good-looking girl, but she goes to the opera. She goes to plays. And I keep telling her, you're not making anything. You're consuming. Now, consuming can be fun, but it's not half as fun as making something. It just is. If I told you now, you could trade your whole stuff, but it'll be X'd out of your memory thing, but they'll give you $1 billion. It would be so boring when you come home with the big, what are you going to do? It's no challenge. One of the reasons you tease your mate is you want to get her up. You want to have pseudo conflict because you need that challenge. Think about the Kennedys. No matter what they do, people are going to say, yeah, well, if it wasn't their father, they wouldn't have, they missed the whole thing. The whole thing is the uncertainty of it. The neatest time in sex is before you don't know where the two of you are going to go. Where is it really going to happen? And it's that uncertainty that makes the sex better.
I can add, let me just share a bit here with you. As an interesting character, I like to think of myself as an interesting character. And I like to think that I've had some interesting travels over the years, and I've been to some interesting countries, and I've had some interesting experiences. But let me just tell you right now, I can't talk about those on these podcasts because I might get judged, or I might get canceled, or I might get banned. But I got to tell you, it's been fun, Larry. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then you brought a girl home and your sisters didn't want to meet her. And your response was very interesting. Look at these people. They have a chance to meet someone from another country, another world, and they're not interested, or the threat, or whatever.
You were talking about something a second ago, too, and you know me. You know I've been working on essentially a film project for many years now, and I'm actually getting to the point where it is go time. It's go time to say, Mike, put the budget together. But I have to tell you, that process of doing it, going from having no understanding of how a script should be constituted, no understanding of how to take all of these experiences that I've had and to put them into words that professional people involved in the film world can then help to make this movie. That process, just creating it, has been wonderful. I mean, it's just been almost every day for 5 years. That chance to almost like carving something, carving a statue or sculpting a statue, I should say. That feeling of perfection, that feeling of chasing perfection, that feeling of creating is great.
You're chasing a feeling you're never going to get to perfection. That's not the game. Literally, if I stop tomorrow, I don't need any money. And I'm not particularly interested in living longer either. Very interested. I'm moving some memory stuff. But even that, I look at it as a game. Because fun is in uncertainty. I will tell you, I have made a good deal of money. It's very simple. It all came down to trading. My whole life is like that. You don't get the thrill unless you have the uncertainty.
I brought up the Jim Cameron thing earlier. Another one that I saw, and you might have heard me talk about this in the podcast, it was Matt Damon, the actor, and he was talking about Matt Damon grew up with Ben Affleck. They were friends. Both of their parents told both of the boys, do not do this. Do not be an actor. Because they were asking Matt Damon about his kids being actors. And so he gave this long story. And he's like, look, Ben Affleck's mother was like, do not do this, Matt. Do not do this. Do not do this. And so basically it was the same thing Cameron said. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And if someone's telling you not to do it, it doesn't make a difference whether they're your mother or your father. If you're really born to do it, you're going to do it.
Yeah. Sharon's father met her mother and fell madly in love with her. But their father wouldn't let him marry this girl he wanted to marry until his older sister got married. I cannot, and you cannot.
You can't follow rules like that, Larry. They don't make any sense because the thing is people like me, people like you, other people listening, we weren't meant to be part of that. We were meant to be part of something else.
Oh, yeah. It's the craziest thing. I didn't care. I really don't care who wants it. The idea is, could I get it? What do I got to do to do it? But part of it is the danger. And I don't know if this is more of a boy thing than a girl thing, but I remember from 14 to maybe 20 something, I did really stupid, dangerous shit, especially given my handicaps. But I would not think of that. It's part of what you like in the game.
Share something also, too, as you bring these stories up of not necessarily ladies, but I was thinking recently I had a female family member give me all the reasons why she could not travel to Vietnam, has never traveled to Asia, but all the reasons. And these reasons were just nonsensical reasons, but it was all just that emotional, I'm afraid, but I'm at a point in my life to where I can pretend that I'm not afraid and I can just make up all these excuses not to go. And then I contrast that with why do I enjoy, my business partner, for example, is a Vietnamese lady, but why do I enjoy a place like Vietnam? And if you go back, and people can do this right now, you do a few quick Google searches. During the war, it was not uncommon to have Vietnamese women handling machine guns and using them. This attitude, I'm convinced, permeates this country still. And it's intoxicating. It's intoxicating where you have essentially these risk-taking, look, I'm a guy, I like ladies, okay? But you have these risk-taking women that have essentially this gusto, also with the femininity, but to have that gusto is just a wonderful trait. Contrasted to what we saw during COVID, for example, where in America, we just scared the bejesus out of women. We scare them that they must take 1,000,000 shots, they must wear masks all the time, and all this stuff. And I just think as men, we generally like femininity, but we also like a little toughness. My great-grandmother lived to 101. Her husband died in a drowning accident, I think in her early 20s, and she raised 3 kids and stayed a widower for the next essentially 75 years. But she was tough. She lived in a small apartment in Portsmouth, Virginia. It was not exactly a nice neighborhood, but she handled it. I think that's something in this modern age, we've lost a little bit of it. If you're out there listening, you're saying, hey, why does Mike Covel like to be where he's at? Well, I'm telling you, it's not a secret.
Because they really don't like. You gotta like the game. I'm doing something, a whole new business, but no, it's the same business, but I'm using it, buying and selling legal stuff so that which is a great leverage, which I'll go into the way it's done. You can make a lot of money. So I will tell you, my wealth, such as it is, I will come to one major thing. I showed up. I never wanted to do anything outside some recreation where I don't think there's a big payoff, either in money or having a great time. If I think it's going to be dull for me, I'm not going to do it.
You have a dramatic need, Larry. I have one, a dramatic need to get through life, meaning you have this need to overcome obstacles. You have this need to overcome uncertainty. You have this need to march forward. A lot of people have a need to get drunk and watch freaking football or basketball or baseball or whatever. That's their need. That's a shitty need. I mean, I wish they could be inspired by your need, but some people can't be inspired. They're stuck.
No, that's true. Here's what I think is going to happen. You and I know that events and shit, they make too much of them. For instance, so my wife, with his artificial intelligence, a whole bunch of people, the jobs that'll be lost. And he said, history does not say that. History says every time that they invented shit, they invented whole jobs that didn't exist. My wife takes it the whole wrong way. She's afraid there'll be more jobs out of this.
But the word job alone, Larry, that word's such a crappy word. What are we? We're just burger flippers? Come on, that's part of the problem here, is the word job. They want security, they want consistency, they want a fantasy. The entitlement world gives it to them.
As you get older, you find you really don't do as many dangerous physical things as you did. But when you were from 12 to 20, I did such incredibly stupid things. But that's being a boy. Trying to make up for what you don't have, whatever it is. But that guy's answer was totally correct. And my father told me, don't ask, just do it.
You brought up AI a second ago, and I got to tell you something I did with AI today. I was using Microsoft's browser, and they've got this AI component. And I was curious about something. I was working on something, and I just asked Mr. AI a simple question. I said, give me the top 10 investors from the 19th century. Seems like a simple enough request for the wonderful, amazing, so smart, so intelligent AI. It gave me 3 names. I think one was Jesse Livermore, but it was like, we can't give you any more. There's no more information. If that's AI, I'm not terribly impressed. Right now, it doesn't feel like to me anything much more than a thesaurus. and basically another way to search Wikipedia. I mean, frankly, I'm not impressed at all. I'm sure there's people out there saying, oh no, I've seen it make this wonderful digital piece of art. Oh no, it wrote this piece of code for me. Yeah. I'm not buying it yet. Maybe it's all going to turn into something crazy, wonderful, but I'm not buying it.
I don't really give a fuck.
There you go.
Seriously, look, what is going to happen? It's going to go way up. And it is going to come crashing down. It's going to fall short, come up with some great shit, but it is not going to rule the world. People don't realize these machines are plugged into a wall. So no matter how mighty you think, if you pull the fucking plug, it sits there like a lump. Maybe someday, I'm told some machines develop their own languages to other machines. I am going forward with what I'm telling you like a true trend follower. And I'm saying this is going to be huge.
Will the wife let you back to Asia?
What? Sure. Well, yeah. She actually, she having a life here. Now, my wife, having been born in a project in Brooklyn, is spoiled when she met me and her other husband. She loves to travel. She just loves it.
It's hard, though. I mean, let's face it. I am exactly on the other side of the planet from you, so it's not so easy. I know.
But look at it. You and I are having a conversation almost verbally as we would have if we're in a bar in New York. Thousands of miles have been erased. And we're having this conversation.
By the way, Larry, I have, and it was done on a really cheap recorder, I have our original conversations from 2005 recorded somewhere. I've not listened to them since then, but they are somewhere. I might have to pull them out. I don't think I ever released them. I think I used them for part of a book, but I don't think I've ever released them. I'm sure we sound exactly the same. I suspect we do.
Oh, yeah. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this thing was because I could tell you the events to look for, and they will happen. I wanted to make a challenge of some sort. All you got to do is look for these events, and they're in the newspaper.
Let me stop here a second. So not to get into specifics too much, but you've got a speculative idea in your mind about where we are at this moment in terms of the markets and what you, based on a lot of experience, can imagine unfolding. I got to share with you, I don't have the same level of experience, but I know when rates start to move up as high as they are moving right now, as fast as they have moved, there is some pressure building that will be released at some point in time. How it's going to be released, I have no earthly idea exactly. You might have that figured out already, but there's definitely going to be a pressure released from these rates rising.
We have seen what's going to happen is what happened with Tesla. If people are going to think it's going to be great, then they're going to think it's terrible. They're going to hate him. They're going to love him. There'll be competition. But here is the truth. David Dodd of Graham Dodd, when he wrote the book, he says, well, the markets are basically two things, a counting thing, a weighing thing, and a voting thing. Well, my experience with the markets are basically totally a voting game. That's it. You buy the stock or commodity because the price is going in up. That's what we're buying. We sell if it's going down.
You and I have talked so much. I've written a bunch of books. You've written a book. You've been in a zillion books. What you just said, you say it so nonchalantly, so simple. Markets go up, I'm long. Markets go down, I'm short. Essentially what you just said. So many people cannot accept that. They can't get into the mindset because what they think, even when they hear you say that, they think you have for sure a fundamental reason for why you know it will go up. Now, you might in this example, but I know generally you don't. And generally, you're talking about being a free rider on a trend. But that concept, for whatever reason, a lot of people, I've watched them in real time. They hear someone like you say that. They hear someone like me say it. They can't get the idea of riding a trend without knowing where it's going to go and why it's going.
But that's the truth.
They don't get it. Here's the part that I don't get about people. If I try to explain the Larry Hite mindset, and then they look at me with that blank stare of, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Mike, then I would think, because this is what I did, you would at least be curious enough to know, well, how did he get the money? How did his peers get the money? Maybe somebody doesn't want to understand what I say about trend following or what you say, but Jesus, where's the curiosity to at least, if they don't get it, they don't understand, you know what it is though, Larry? It's freaking ego. It's freaking ego because they can't accept what you're saying. They don't understand what you're saying. And they got such a big damn ego, they won't try to figure it out. That's my theory.
That's exactly the truth. A friend of mine put it, it's all about envy. Envy. It's like when I was in England, there was a book called American Think and Brit Think. And it pointed out, let's say a guy, I saw this, I was walking on the street with a friend of mine, and a guy comes by, a young guy, he must have been about 35, maybe 32, in a Rolls Royce convertible with a very good-looking blonde.
You just got canceled. I don't think you're allowed to say that phrase anymore. A very good looking blonde. That's probably not even legal anymore, except on my podcast. Perfectly legal here.
What they say is, why does he have that? I don't, and I should have that. Well, you and I are very good examples of it. We don't say, take it from that guy. You and I say, I'm going to get that.
Here's what's crazy, though. I brought up that ego is the reason why they won't want to learn from you. You brought up envy. They're all in the same headspace. But if I go down the envy route for a second, what's so interesting is that you, Larry Hite, could come into a room full of doctors and attorneys that don't have the foggiest idea of what trend following is. You could explain it to them. You could want them to learn. You could be sitting there willing to be patient with them. And instead of lifting a finger to try to understand what the hell you're saying, they do literally get envious. They don't even realize that you're standing in front of them, telling them how to freaking do it. You're willing to explain to them how to do it. But in their mind, they think there's some secret that you're not telling them. So then they're envious. It's crazy.
Or a friend of mine's father, who was a working class guy, he said, well, how did Larry get to that? His father probably helped him.
Ridiculous. We can always do that. I remember seeing John W. Henry's first disclosure document. For those people that are listening, this would be a commodity trading advisor, disclosure document on file with the United States government. I probably did a freedom of information request back in the day. Now, John Henry's worth $4 billion today. Okay, yeah, not everybody's going to be worth $4 billion. I get it. However, when you see John Henry's disclosure document and you see the first month that he had $16,000 in the account, literally on file with the U.S. government, he quickly raised more money. He had profits, but the guy put down $16,000 in the audited disclosure document as the money that he started to trade as a professional trend following trader. Now, damn it, if that's not motivating, I don't know what the hell is.
And this is why I was trying. This is the nub of why I called you. But I don't know if we'll go on and do it, but I was going to tell you on the air, speaking to you, what events you will see in the newspaper that you would trade along. And my bet is how many people are going to tell them the events. And they're very easy to do. All you got to do is, I don't know anything about it. Right? I don't have the depth in it. But I could see how people are going to react. And all the movement at that price is done because people react. It's not just by God. It's people The price moves the people. That's how it goes. Without the people, the price doesn't move. You go to the Cuban sugar trading floor, there's nothing there. It's fixed. Here, these prices move because the people. That is the main agreement of all markets. We are all going to die. Prices don't move without someone doing something. It's the person. Could be using a computer, could be using. John Henry and I probably started out looking at newspaper prices and making charts, spreadsheets, or something in the clumsiest ways. But we started. We didn't know where we were going. Certainly don't know that what we did. We didn't know we was going to make $4 billion.
Hold on, you said clumsiest of ways. That's only looking back in hindsight. At the time you were doing it, didn't feel clumsy. It felt like, oh my God, I've got the tiger by the tail here and I'm going with this baby. And so what if you had to do some manual photocopying or some manual spreadsheets or some Lotus 123? It didn't matter. Why did that matter? Because the amount of money you could make was so astronomical. Who cared about a little paperwork?
I'm walking down the street with a young lady. So she says, so what is your plan? I don't forget this. She was a bureaucrat. She had PhDs, very interesting human being. And I said, well, the money is there. I'm here. I close the gap. I get the money. And I have to build a machine to operate it. And she said to me, that's your plan? That's the whole plan? I said, no. As you go along, you adjust. I don't know what's going to be. I know I don't know the next 20 days, 20 minutes. I've been in buildings that if I would have been there, I would have been dead. It blew up. Who would have known? I missed all the World Trade Center things because I overslept other things. Didn't matter. I don't know. I didn't know I don't know. And I don't really give a fuck because all I really have to know is my stop, and they'll pay me.
Let me interject there really quick as a PSA, a public service announcement. Based on what Larry just said, my podcast listening friends, go check out his book, The Rule. It goes into a lot more depth about what he just said.
Well, thank you. But that's why I thought I would do this public thing with you, because I'm telling you that you don't need that much. What will happen, AI stuff will start to break into new highs. Then the next, this is Jesse Livermore 101. And then that's going to break into new highs, and then industries will evolve, like we saw. And competition comes. And there'll be ups and there'll be downs. And we know the cause of the ups and downs are people. People, they're either elated, dull, or depressed. That's basically the whole way. Anything else about the inner stuff, how this works, the story you just told me, that the data was so thin that they came up with 3 of the investors. That machine is not really working. A human being, you've come up with 20, right? You're just a human being.
But what you just said, Larry, about AI, I guess every generation has their version of AI, so to speak.
Yeah.
That product or service where the masses start voting, irrationally voting perhaps at some point in time. But that's the deal. And if you're a trend follower, who cares if it's irrational? It's still real money.
It's actually life. You were going to marry this girl, and you had some good times with her. Do you regret not having those good times?
My relationships are a whole different conversation.
Okay, but you don't regret it.
No, and I've not officially got married yet. I've had some close calls with some very nice ladies, but things happen. That's life. You line up and you move forward, and sometimes you take one step backward. On the flip side, everyone listening knows what the divorce rate is. None of us have got this thing figured out. I would say this, though, but my parents and my grandparents, both couples got to over 50 years. So that's pretty amazing, at least in my family.
Although, how many cousins do you have?
How many cousins do I have? It's an interesting question. Hold on, because I've got some remarriages and some kids that happened outside of, it's under 10.
Okay, how many of your cousins have been divorced?
At least one. Some of them are still fairly young, actually, that have just not gotten married yet. So,
okay, I'm just saying, because basically half your cousins, my cousins, have been divorced.
half of them.
Half of them, which is what the statistics say. It amazes me that here is one of the major decisions of your life. I'm walking down the street. I'm going to go into Central Park and run. Blonde, very loud, and she's running. And what is she screaming about? She's just got divorced. She married this guy in California. He took half her money, and she's fucking pissed. But she does very well because she's taking all her girlfriends, and they're going out having a great time. So I was joking with them. But she told me, this guy took half her money. And not only did she lose half the money, or she had to pay the fucking lawyer $270,000 for the divorce.
The other side of that equation, again, I've not figured out anything perfectly yet, but I will say this. I truly enjoy being in a traditional culture. There are parts of America, and you're outlining some of them, where I'm a hopeless romantic when it comes down to it. I mean, ultimately, I get the trend following stuff. Ultimately, I like the romance. I like the seduction, and I like the tradition. I don't like many of the things that America has become. That's not our foundation. That what we see today in modern America, divorce everywhere and 15 million genders and all this other nonsense and violence everywhere, this is not what America once was. I enjoy being outside of that system. I hope one day that system in America resets itself, but so far there's no evidence of that.
I'll tell you something. I feel, and many of my friends my age, very alienated. I mean, it used to be, I knew the difference between a guy and a girl or somebody gay. I personally was not against any gay people doing whatever they want to do. It's not my fucking business. I really don't care. But I don't really want to have to just one of the granddaughters, she's a they, not she.
We should not have naked gay men parades in our big cities. We've jumped the shark on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, so my idea.
Take Mike and Larry and put them on a podcast. We cover a lot of territory in an hour. We just went from trend following and AI to, this wasn't you, this was me, but the gay naked guys at parades. We cover a lot of territory here on this podcast. This is serious stuff, man. This is not half-baked.
I grew up, crime, organized crime was very much a part of where I grew up. It was just what some families did.
It was not really a risk to you, though, was it?
Well, it could be. What happened is my father had a factory.
Okay, there you go. That changes the dynamic.
And they go, George, it's going to be a strike. I know it's your busy season. Fucking, they absolutely knew that as well as my father. She said, maybe George, because I know this guy, maybe for 10 grand, that strike can go away for a while. That's the world. And that was not even considered a crime. So my father paid it on the concept of that's the cost of doing business.
There you go. Now the cost of doing business, though, is if you walk down those streets near your house in New York City, you've got to worry about risks that you never had to worry about over the decades now. Some lunatic homeless person jumping out and assaulting you or whatnot. There's a lot of crazy stuff these days.
Oh, I will tell you. And Here's where they really fuck up. They don't punish. I can tell you, you give me a month in New York City and let me chop off the hand of anybody using a gun. You would see guns go very down. Because they wouldn't be dead. They'd be walking around without a hand.
Can I clarify, though? I think you're talking specifically about people that have a gun in their hand that are performing a bad behavior, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, you do that. You punish them, but you don't put them in jail. You cut their hand, their arm off, and say,
Stealing for the same thing, all this stealing, all that's going on across America, can we just also go back to Middle East principles and cut the hand off?
correct. It will work. There'd be a lot of anger, but in reality,
What we're talking about right now, though, I'm going to call this the revenge of the men. I think too many men, me, you, other rational, normal men, maybe we've got some differing political opinions, maybe we don't, but too many men have sat on the sidelines for the last couple decades, and now we're paying the price because too many lunatics are running the governments. They're running specifically the local governments. All you have to do is look at a couple reports about what's going on in poor San Francisco. But the idea that our cities have become tent cities filled with drug abusers and people shitting on the street and all this other nonsense, and that we can't do anything about it, that's not something that men allowed to happen. I don't know who's allowed it to happen exactly, but I think it's time for the men to show up and put their foot down. I'd be banned for saying that, huh?
yes, you are. It's the truth. It actually comes with 1,000 reasons why I wouldn't do it, but I would think about it. My proof is I'm going to tell these people exactly the events to look for, and you make money. Because I know about AI, nothing. But now the dog's got the bone in his mouth. Prices are going to move up and down.
Instead of putting it on the podcast, why don't we put together a document that we can share with people? It could be brief. We can attach it to the podcast notes or whatnot, but just share with people some of these big picture ideas that you have. I think that might be more effective than putting it on the podcast.
Okay, I just wanted you. I didn't care if we were on the podcast. What I cared was you're one person who knows the field, actually knows the field. Now, there are business reasons why you are not a big public investor. Because you've got a bunch of people, it's different.
We can go forever. I always love talking to you. We're going to pick this up again. I got to put a pin in it. Larry, we could talk at any time.
Just let's think about it, because I actually don't want to be. What I want to do is create a document giving these people these things. I'm going to do it myself and somehow make it bigger. There's the fact that here's this guy, he knows nothing about the science that they're talking about, really. And yet, if you follow these events in your newspaper, you can make money.
Trend following 101.
But it is, but you and I, John Henry, and a lot of people that we know, we live trend following lives. John Henry has a new wife who is the age of his oldest daughter.
Round of applause, please.
So the people that we have the privilege of knowing and talk with are the people that get it done because they do it.
Larry, we will catch up again soon, always.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.